We need to have a conversation in the black communities, notice I say communities, there's more than one, about our use of economic power and political power. Okay, I agree with Dr. Boyce Watkins when he says you have to have both. Having one without the other is like having a license but no car. So when it comes to economic power, I'm proud of some people I've seen on Facebook and others who are moving their money to black banks, who are holding businesses accountable, saying, hey, if you're not going to look out for us, we're not going to support you. Also, when it comes to political power, I believe in reform. And if we exhaust every avenue of reform and none comes, then that's when we need to have a conversation about revolution. But we're not there yet. There's a lot of reform I think we could do. I'd like to see us look at nationwide voter registration drives. I'd like to see us, black people, as many as possible, get behind one candidate like Jill Stein and show our political power.
Yes.
Like unions do, like Jewish people do, like Hispanic people do. And I'm not calling them monoliths, but I'm saying they do talk about their issues. They do have those conversations so that people are as educated as they can be. And I'd like to see us do that. There's so many actual things that we can do. And what do you think about that?
It's funny that you mentioned that because there was a study that was conducted that proved that Democrats don't win elections unless they have something like 85% of the African American vote, period.
Yeah.
If they don't have 85% of the African American vote, they don't win the election. So what does that tell you? That means that if we were to all rally behind a candidate who actually does represent our interests, who isn't bought by corporations,
who doesn't just say it like Hillary does,
service, who actually demonstrates it to us through policy, who doesn't have a history of opposing policies that benefit our people.
Prison pipeline, 3 strikes you're out. I mean, with trade deals that took jobs out of our community.
With respect to the crime bill, I think as more Americans focus on the fact that this bill would have put more police on the street, would have given more prison construction money available to the states.
They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel.
Campaigning against the Voting Rights Act, all of those things. So if we were to all get behind Jill Stein right now, there's a good chance she'd have a shot at winning.
Yeah.
Like there's a genuine chance that she'd have a shot at winning.
If Jill Stein could get the vote of student loans, I think I went to her rally recently. She said about 43 million people affected by like student loans. If she could get that, and she could also get our vote, we would be heard. Because then they could not play with us. Bernie Sanders has shown that there is a Kickstarter type model available where you get support, manageable donations consistently from your people. $27. Can you imagine? Think about if we did
$27 out
that.
of your paycheck.
Yeah, $27
out of your paycheck.
$27. Like, I know some of us can't do that. I know money's tight, but for those who can you imagine? We could take our government back. And I haven't even talked about Wolfpack, wolf-pack.com, the idea of getting money out of politics. I believe that is crucial.
Yeah. But
crucial.
Going into what you were saying, I'm going to give you a little bit of pushback. I actually don't think that so there's certain agencies that I just believe are too far gone. DEA,
FBI, CIA.
In some ways FBI, some ways CIA, but most importantly, I think the police state is the police state is way too far gone. I don't think that there's anything that we can do to repair the culture because the culture is ingrained in that kind of separatist, white supremacist mentality. It was fostered from white supremacy. I mean, it goes all the way back to the slave patrols, for instance.
Yeah, it does.
So what we're asking them to do is to change the nature of their beak. What we're asking them to do is to turn a scorpion into a swan. And it's just not going to happen. It will never happen because a scorpion does what it does. It stings the fuck out of people. And so with the police, I think honestly the only thing you can really do is divest and correct. Divest and correct and then replace. replace them with private security interests, private security
And what do
companies
you
that are
mean by
funded by your.
divesting and
What I mean by divesting and correcting, what I mean by that is when you divest from their agencies, you cut funding to their agencies immediately, right? And then so you cut down on how many police officers that you have, and then you correct the way in which police are used in that state. For instance, when there's a fire, I call the fire department. Somebody's having a heart attack, I call the EMS. If I want the police to show up, if someone is getting choked out in the park, I call the police, and then the police show up. But the police should not act as occupying armies in our inner cities. That is not their role. That's why they're understaffed, quote unquote. It's because they're trying to be the military. They're pretending as if they're in Baghdad. They're pretending as if they're in Iraq. They're pretending as if they're in a hostile nation, right? So if we actually correct that attitude and then replace them all together, and the way that we replace them is through charters and grants offered by local counties and the state as well, to people who want to have private security within their neighborhood that's managed by their HOAs, managed by their property management groups, etc. Most importantly, managed by the people within that community. For instance, black people can get together, start their own private security companies.
Which is already happening. There are gang members who say, you know what, we want to clean up our neighborhoods, and are coming together to do so. So for those of you listening to this and you're saying, oh, that's a pipe dream, well, you're in the pipe dream, because it is already happening right in now. Different communities.
So I mean, yeah, absolutely. So that's a 3-step process that we can take right now. And for what I understand, it doesn't really take any policies to be passed as much as it does pressure on like governors to simply divest the resources.
Yeah,
and simply change the allocation of resources.
And I want to jump on a few things you said for clarification of my viewpoints. I think there are some police officers who are white supremacists. I think there's others who aren't.
I don't mean that all police officers are white supremacists.
But I do think that, like you said, it's almost that it's ingrained into the very bricks of the structure. So the problem is, there is this us versus them mentality. There's sometimes you have police who don't really understand what's going on in those neighborhoods. And instead of us as a country saying that we're going to put energy toward the real solution, such as building up education again, because we're stripping education in this country, then we wonder why we have issues. Or saying that we're going to stop sending our jobs to other countries and we're going to keep them here, which good luck with that, because corporations run pretty much everything. I think those are the kind of things that would actually lead to less crime, because as I was telling my wife last night, one of the reasons that people, and again, even my conversation right now is a bit flawed, because I'm talking about crime when the real issue is the real criminals in these cases are the police, actually. And the excuse that's used is that, oh, well, there's crime. Well, part of that is, if that is the case, we need to do a better job of making sure that we invest in our communities again. Why are we giving money to so many different countries overseas? Yes, I'm talking about Israel, when we could be investing in our own people. Why do we give free money to Wall Street and our financial institutions through quantitative easing when we could actually look at investing in our own? Some of you may say, oh, that's isolationist. Yes, it is, because I'd like to see us building up our own. And so when we're talking about institutions that we believe that we can't just simply put a nice painted coat on, that we have to divest. I've been saying that for a while.
Because we have finally gotten more police officers on the street. That was one of the goals that the president had when he pushed the crime bill that was passed in 1994. He promised 100,000 police. We're moving in that direction, but we can see it already makes a difference. Because if we have more police interacting with people, having them on the streets, we can prevent crimes. We can prevent petty crimes from turning into something worse. But we also have to have an organized effort against gangs. Just as in a previous generation we had an organized effort against the mob. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel.